They're here.
Every generation has a horror movie that lingers, not because of the jump scares, but because something about it feels too real. For the 1980s, that movie was Poltergeist. A perfect suburban family, a cute little girl talking to invisible voices through the TV, and then utter chaos. But what if the real nightmare didn't end when the camera stopped rolling? What if the cast and crew carried something dark back home with them? Because ever since Poltergeist hit theaters in 1982, whispers have followed it like a cold draft through an empty house, actors dying young, and coincidences that feel anything but. Were these tragedies paranormal fallout from messing with forces best left alone, or just the chilling side effects of superstition, grief, and coincidence?
This week, we'll be digging into one of Hollywood's spookiest legends, the Poltergeist curse.
Before the curse, there was the Dream Team. Steven Spielberg had just finished Raiders of the Lost Ark, Tobe Hooper was famous for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and together, they set out to make a haunted house story that looked like a family adventure movie. Until the dead started to wake, metaphorically and literally. Poltergeist was a hit. Critics praised it, audiences couldn't sleep for weeks, and it gave us that immortal whisper. They're here. But while the audience was marveling at special effects behind the camera, something dark was already brewing. Let's pause for a second on the pool scene, which it might just be my favorite scene. Jo Beth Williams, covered in mud, screaming as the storm rages, assumed that those skeletons around her were props, and you would too. Foam, latex, plastic, typical movie magic. Except they weren't. Years later, Williams learned the truth. Those were real human skeletons.
Yep.
Apparently, they were ordered from a medical supply company. The special effects artist Craig Reardon confirmed it, saying they bought about a dozen skeletons wired and articulated, then aged them with paint, dirt, and decay to make them look freshly unearthed. Real bones were apparently cheaper than fake ones. Can you imagine being told that after the fact? You spend hours screaming in the rain, submerged in mud with skeletons, and later down the line, someone casually mentions, "Oh, by the way, no, those were real corpses." That single revelation turned a Hollywood ghost story into something almost ritualistic. A production that literally disturbed the dead for realism. And for a film about angry spirits buried under a suburban home, that's poetic. In the worst possible way. There's debate about how common this practice was. Reardon insists that back then, many films used biological skeletons. They were catalog items, sold like lab supplies. Studios rarely questioned about their origins. Nobody talked about consent, provenance, or ethics. It was business as usual, bones for art. But that raises the question that still haunts this story. Did the studio cross the line here? And who bears the responsibility when the dead become props for entertainment? Maybe the curse isn't about ghosts at all. Maybe it's about the moral discomfort of realizing that for the sake of realism, a film blurred the boundary between art and the afterlife. The audience was gasping at the horror on screen, never knowing that somewhere beneath the surface, it was already real. Maybe that's where the real haunting began, not in a graveyard, but in the choices made behind camera. Because once those bones were put away again and the film wrapped, that's when the misfortunes started. Cast members who laughed off the curse would soon face unthinkable tragedies, and suddenly, the story of Poltergeist stopped being about haunted televisions and started feeling like something that refused to stay fictional. Tragedy number 1 struck fast. Dominique Dunne, who played the oldest daughter, Dana, was strangled by her ex-boyfriend just months after the movie premiered. She was only 22. Then came the heartbreak that cemented the legend. Heather O'Rourke, the sweet wide-eyed Carol Ann, died in 1988 at only 12 years old. A misdiagnosed intestinal blockage led to septic shock just after she'd finished filming Poltergeist 3. Her death turned what had been spooky coincidence into something far darker. And thing is, the list doesn't end there. Julian Beck, the gaunt preacher from Poltergeist 2, was dying of stomach cancer during production and passed away before the film's release. Will Sampson, the Native American shaman also in Poltergeist 2, died a year later from medical complications after a transplant. Sampson was deeply spiritual, and some crew even claimed he performed an exorcism on set to clear bad energy. One death might be chance, but 4? It's beginning to look a lot like fate, at least to the media, hungry for headlines. Soon every malfunction, illness, or electrical flicker on set was folded into the myth. The curse now had a body count and a backstory. Beyond the tragedies, the cast and crew recalled strange moments. Jo Beth Williams said that whenever she returned home from filming, the pictures on her wall would be tilted, as if someone had been moving them. Lights flickered, cameras malfunctioned. Zelda Rubinstein, who played the psychic Tangina, claimed she felt a presence of death on set. Were these memories embellished by time and publicity? Possibly, but that's how folklore grows. Repetition until rumor hardens into truth. Even skeptics admit that the production had an atmosphere so thick that belief felt inevitable. Now, officially, Poltergeist was directed by Tobe Hooper, but Steven Spielberg was everywhere as well, producing, rewriting, and sometimes quietly directing scenes himself. Two creative forces pulling in opposite directions. Hooper's raw horror versus Spielberg's childlike wonder. That tension gave the movie its unique tone, warmth wrapped with dread. If you believe in energy imprinting, that emotional tug-of-war could be its own kind of haunting. Two creative spirits inhabiting one body of work. By the late 80s, the curse narrative was unstoppable. Entertainment shows and tabloids latched on. When Poltergeist 3 released after Heather O'Rourke's death, audiences watched through superstition. Soon, every major horror production wanted its own spooky reputation. The Omen, The Exorcist, The Conjuring. Poltergeist had set the template, turning Misfortune into profit. Think about it for a second. Even now, a horror film doesn't feel properly haunted unless someone whispers that the set itself, in some way, was cursed. Of course, not everyone believes in the curse. Skeptics state that statistically speaking, film productions involve hundreds of people over many years. Tragedy is inevitable somewhere along the timeline. Additionally, skeptics claim that these deaths don't really have anything to do with the movie itself. For instance, the death of Julian Beck. Before being cast for Poltergeist 2, Julian already had pre-existing cancer. And as for Heather O'Rourke and Will Sampson, medical misdiagnosis and errors in general are deemed as one of the leading causes of premature death in America, which is true. Even now, with modern medical science, it still holds a place in the top 5. But here's the thing. Folklore isn't about statistics. It's about storytelling. Humans are wired to find meaning in chaos. The Poltergeist curse works because it mirrors the movie itself. Disturb the dead, and they disturb you back. The power of the legend lies in what it reveals about us. Our need to connect events, to impose moral order on randomness, and to believe that stories echo beyond the screen. So, is the Poltergeist curse real? Maybe not in the supernatural sense, but as folklore goes, it's undeniable. It reminds us that stories don't stay confined within the reels of film. They seep out into culture and memory. Maybe that's why the Poltergeist still feels haunted, because it's built on the uneasy truth that even works of fiction can leave real scars. So, What do you think? Do you believe that the poltergeist curse is real, or just a series of unfortunate events spotlighted by the media? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm Josiah with Paranormish, and once again, it's been such a great time diving into spooky lore for you. Please leave a like and subscribe for more content. As for a parting tip, if you or someone in your family claims there are people inside your TV, do yourself a favor and just throw it out. Or better yet, move. Unless swimming with skeletons sounds like a good time to you. Stay curious.